And welcome back to Touchline Talk. We're going to jump straight into what's next here. Coming up today, Tuesday, November 24th, the return of the Champions League and the final games of the first round of the MLS playoffs. So your matchups tonight, as I mentioned earlier, Nashville drew Toronto as the higher seeded play-in team, which means New England is going to Philadelphia. And then LAFC Seattle in your final Western Conference game. I'm going to start by saying I would be somewhere between surprised and shocked if all three higher seeded teams win these games. I really don't like the matchup for any of them, to be quite honest. Nashville is the kind of team that plays defense at the level that can frustrate Toronto's really good attack, can bother Alejandro Pozuelo, and you could absolutely see it being one of those games where Toronto had the better chances, Toronto controlled the ball, but there's a moment of excellence, like you saw from Randall Leal against Inter Miami, or Dax McCarty pops up, or whatever it might be. You get something out of your strikers, and all of a sudden it's 1-0, 2-1 Nashville. They are really good defensively, and that's the kind of team, if I'm Toronto, I don't want to play. I don't want to play the teams that can make it ugly, can bother me, can make it hard to create chances, just generally make things ugly. I'd rather be in the shootout. I'd rather be playing up and down the field, stretching both teams. I don't want the more pragmatic approach that Nashville take, because they have an ability to score. They're not a great offensive team, but we saw what they could do against Inter Miami. Similarly for Philadelphia, I don't like this matchup for two reasons. One, at some point the Revolution are going to beat you because you just don't beat a team every single time you play them. This is meeting number 6 between them this year. Philly have won 4 of 5. The other was a draw. And most of them have been incredibly close, with one goal being the difference. You had an Anthony Fontana stoppage, I believe it was stoppage time winner in one of them. It's not like New England were overmatched in those games for the most part. And the second part is what I already mentioned, that Carles Gil is back. And the fact that this is Bruce Arena coaching this team. I'm just never going to write off the Revs. And Arena joked after the game when asked about the possibility of going to Philly. He said, yeah, they should give us the supporter shield, the amount of points we gave them this year. And he's kind of right. It's unbelievable to me that they ended up playing again. I wish the league would have just said this is not a thing that we're going to allow, but that's not how this works. So here we are. But they've had some success in moments. Now, Philly is the better team. And they had to do it again on decision day, and they got the job done in fairly convincing fashion. They were shaky at the beginning, but New England never really threatened them. So there's every chance they can pull it out again. But something tells me this is going in a shootout and New England's going to win. It's just the law of averages coming into play here. That the more times you see somebody, the harder it is to continue to beat them. And especially with the small margins that have been in most of these games. If you're just clearly better, if this was FC Cincinnati, and you beat them 2-0, 3-1, and 4-2, your 3 regular season meetings, I would feel differently. I think this Revs team has the ability to beat anybody. So, we get this matchup yet again, and then LAFC Seattle. For obvious reasons, I don't like this matchup for Seattle because I don't like any matchup that involves playing LAFC in the first round for any Western Conference team. The one thing Seattle do have going for them, though, they will have the better team on the field, which is not something you usually are able to say when you're playing LAFC. With Diego Rossi and Brian Fernandez testing positive for COVID, along with a couple other players, this is just not going to be the same LAFC team. Bob Bradley still doesn't have all of his preferred attacking options available and now in game shape. Because that was, Carlos Vela wasn't starting at the very beginning when he came back. Yes, they all played against the Galaxy, but Vela didn't come on. Vela came on in the second half. Now he's got some games under his belt, but you don't have the other two. And Seattle is more or less intact. You've got Jordan Morris, Ladero, Ruidíaz all expected to be there. And the talent level isn't that different when they're both at full strength, although I don't have any hesitation saying LAFC are the more talented team. But the other part of that is this. As long as Edward Atawest and Carlos Vela are available to play, I think LAFC have a shot to win MLS Cup. That's sort of the line for me. You can lose some other guys, or I should say Vela or Diego Rossi. If one of your star wingers and Atawest are available, I think that they can win this whole thing. The minute that doesn't happen is when I get really concerned. And a lot of that has to do with the production they've gotten from these other attacking pieces that Bob Bradley's had to throw in there. Bradley Wright Phillips was not supposed to be the player he's been this season. He's been spectacular. I believe he scored more goals than his two replacements, Tom Darlow and Brian White in New England combined during the regular season. I could be wrong on that. It might have been the same. I don't remember. But he's been spectacular. And he's generating assists. He was supposed to be a guy you could bring off the bench. And now he's option 2 in attack. But because they're used to not having all three of these guys out there, these three being Rossi, Vela, and Rodriguez, all of a sudden it's not as big of a deal. Of course you want all three of them. Brian Rodriguez and Diego Rossi might be the two best young players in the league. Maybe you put Aronson in between them. But that's my confidence if I'm LAFC, is that we've done this before, we've had some success. But the questions remain the same. Can they be good enough defensively? Can they find a way to win ugly games when the attack isn't flowing perfectly? I wrote this in my preview and I'll say it here too. Bob Bradley can demand all of the pretty soccer he wants. Until they can win 1-0 and win in a penalty shootout and win ugly, they're not lifting out MLS Cup. But I still think as long as Atawest and Vale are there, they've got the pieces. That's going to be a spectacular game. Just won't have the same firepower as we had hoped. On the Champions League side of things, your big game today, PSG, RB Leipzig. The way this group shakes out right now, United, Leipzig have 6 points. PSG, Başakşehir have 3. So this is massive for PSG. If PSG lose this game, I think they're pretty much done. If they get a point, they still have a chance because theoretically you've got 3 points coming against Başakşehir, and they're absolutely able to beat Manchester United. But a loss would be really damaging here, both because it limits your maximum amount of points as a team trying to gain ground, and because it gives Leipzig another 3. Then you're in real trouble. So massive game for PSG. And then we jump to Wednesday. More interesting slate of Champions League games. Liverpool, Atalanta. Atalanta and Ajax both have 4 points in this group, battling it out for second. any points Atalanta can take off of Liverpool would be very helpful. It's not saying anything too out there because they're in a tough spot with Ajax, and you don't want to have to win that second game. You want to be able to come away with a draw and still be the team in second place. Sounds like Mo Salah will be back for this one for Liverpool. And then your most interesting group in the Champions League, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Shakhtar, Borussia Mönchengladbach. Gladbach 5 points, Shakhtar 4, Real Madrid 3, Inter 2. That's how close it is at the halfway point. We're going to see if Gladbach can beat Shakhtar again after they demolished them the first time. Then all of a sudden this is a 3-horse race. But Shakhtar still have an opportunity if they can win this one to put themselves in position, because now you're starting to potentially win some tiebreakers. But if they lose, or even if they draw, there's a real opportunity for Real Madrid and Inter here. I still think at least one of those two is going to get out of this group, and it'll probably be whoever comes away happier today. If Real Madrid get at least a draw, I think they go through. If Inter win, I think they've got a really good shot to go through. So massive, massive ramifications there. The other game I wanted to mention in terms of significance is this Marseille-Porto game. We've talked about Marseille's immense struggles in this competition recently. But if they can win this game, they will have 3 points, Porto will have 6, and theoretically Olympiacos have 3 because they play Manchester City. So all of a sudden they're in this thing. But if they're unable to come away with 3 points, Porto is in a really good position. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Porto's in a really good position to get out of this group if they can get at least a point from Marseille. So that's a massive game as well in terms of the ramifications of teams getting out of the group, because that's what we're talking about at this point. This will be over the halfway mark of the group stage, so now we're looking at who's in a position these last couple of games to clinch spots in the knockout round. That is all we have for you on Touchline Talk today. Thank you so much for listening. Chris Brown is coming with Around the Bases at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we got some exciting news here. We're going to take Thursday off for Thanksgiving. And then we are working toward a completely new schedule here on 110 Live, which will mean the end of Touchline Talk, but the beginning of something incredibly exciting. Our tentative plan is that we'll be going live from 10 a.m. to noon Eastern, Monday through Friday, with an all-encompassing sports talk show, similar to what Josh Molnix is doing now. So be on the lookout for more news about that. Thank you to everyone who has listened to Touchline Talk. This has been a lot of fun. We'll still be doing a European Soccer Top 25, and I'm planning to continue this in a different form once a week with some sort of video, quick recap kind of thing. So be on the lookout for that as well. We're going to shake some things up coming out of Thanksgiving. Really excited about all of that. So stay tuned for big news coming at 110 Sports. That's all we have for you today. Thanks so much for listening. Enjoy the Champions League, enjoy the MLS playoffs, and enjoy Thanksgiving, and stay safe out there.